Well, yeah, just broadly speaking, do I find it useful? Absolutely. I think there's a ton more. The runway is long, right? And so the work that Joe and Steve started, over 30 years ago has been phenomenal. But I think there's a long way for us to go. One of the big issues that I'll highlight that I think also belongs on the research agenda is this question of equity, right? In inequality and inequities in Indian country. I think we need to do a lot more discussion, a lot more research, and a lot more thinking about these questions of inequities. Because it's true that there are some tribes that have just knocked it out of the park and are doing just amazing things, like the best things you could imagine of any government in the world. And that's awesome, right? But there are still way too many tribes that are struggling every single day, both at the governmental level and at the family and individual level. And I think we've got to figure out, how do you start to shrink that inequity over time? Because I suspect, and I'd love to see more research on this, that the gap between the sort of haves and have-nots, or the very successful and the ones that are struggling, that gap continues to widen. And I think that we've got to figure out, how do we start to narrow that gap so that the work of the Harvard Project, the work of honoring nations, the work of nation building really helps tribes at every stage of development, because I think I'm worried about the inequities. So that's another research area that we've really got to dive into. But overall, I would say the Harvard Project's work has been incredible to me personally. I've just been honored to be part of this movement, and I do call it a movement over the last 30 odd years. It's enormously gratifying to work with the tribes. And one of the coolest things about the Harvard Project is that it's field-based. These aren't sort of professors in an ivory tower coming up with sort of just grand theories of how things work. The answers are actually coming from the communities themselves, from the nations themselves. And that says a lot about the Harvard Project's orientation. It's so field-based, and the answers reside in Indian country, not from an ivory tower. And for me, it's been such an honor to be part of that and to help build it. And I think the tribes should be enormously proud of their contributions, because they're the ones who are driving nation building.